So you know Donnie Kidigwa. He's my longtime friend and business partner and the executive vice president of our companies. We've worked together for years. He's a kick to work with. First time I met him, he was working at a dispatch center, and I overheard him behind me in the room saying, "I hate inefficiency." Well, it got my attention. He lives by that rule. At least once a month, he'll say to me something like, "That's not very efficient," and then he'll try to direct me to do something differently. He's usually right. He used to say a lot to me, "You're not the boss of me," whenever I got even remotely close to giving him direction. He doesn't say it as much anymore because we're now business partners. But let's get real, he still does say it from time to time. He's kind of got this wide, raging river of independence flowing through the middle of his personality. I like it, usually. I heard him say a while ago, half sarcastically, to a coworker the other day who was about to do something against his advice. And he said, "You do you, boo." I don't think he meant it. That "you do you, boo" phrase is actually a warning. The source of all pop wisdom, the Urban Dictionary, says, say this to a person when they want to do something that will cause them to be judged negatively, and they plan on doing it even though you warn them. You do you, boo. We're swimming in a sea of you do you booishness, to use a technical term. One person yells, "No one's going to tell me what to do," and the other person yells, "Well, be tolerant." It's like rules of work and rules of life that are specific to us and to large or small groups of people have lost their value and lost their teeth. At least it feels like that on the surface. In a time when "You're not the boss of me" is almost like our national anthem, along with Carly Simon's song, "I Haven't Got Time for the Pain," and in a time when "it depends" and "it's all relative" are the most common reactions to setting any kind of standard or rule, we may have missed something really important. Rules are tools. Well conceived, rules set us free. Rules like disciplines can enable us to do something well beyond our innate abilities and well beyond our lazy propensities. So let's talk about rules. This is a video in a series of videos about the rule of life. This video, part one, is we're going to talk about rules that are good ones and ones that we break. And we're going to lay out a bunch of things that we've learned over the years. So let's talk, I guess, about the good and the bad and the ugly of rules in life. And then in another video, which we had a while ago, and there's going to be a link in here, Andrew will throw that link up there or down there, wherever he feels like throwing that link, to a video where we talk about these songs you don't want to have, tunes you don't want to have playing in your head. He'll throw that up there. In that video, we talk about rules are what in that one we call defaults. These defaults, these rules, they are the way things are. There are some mindsets when we think about these rules or defaults. There's three mindsets. We talk about it in more detail in that video, but just a quick review. Some people have this mindset when it comes to defaults or to rules that they can't see them at all. They just live in other people's rules and they never even notice them. They never think about them. They never try to make them better. Another mindset is that some people see them, but they think that the rules are literal, that they are to be followed according to the letter of the law, no matter what. They get nervous when they don't know what a rule is or they don't know how to comply with it. They're just really tight about that. Little sidebar here. There's like a subset of this second group of people who take it on themselves to make sure that the rules are enforced constantly and consistently. These people are the squinty-eyed, pursed-lipped, graceless, and unbending rule enforcers. Then there's another group. There are some people, and I hope this is you, who see the rules as tools. They use them like a place to start. They treat them like guidelines that point to something worthwhile. They're tracks to a locomotive. They're like the Bernoulli principle to an airplane. They're like that age-old wisdom. Speak the truth, but do so humbly and in love with curiosity. We've all got rules. Even people who say they hate rules. Even the local anarchist chapter has a president that starts their meetings on time and won't let people in if they're late. Even in this sea of you-do-booishness, we still crave structure. The human brain is like that. Don't you find it interesting? I do. That one of the best-selling books in the last few years, in the middle of this sea of no rules, do you, make it all about you, is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I find it interesting that Reed Hastings wrote this bestseller called No Rules, Rules, and in it he talks about rules that create and sustain Netflix's highly innovative culture. They follow at least these rules. It's a rule: hire and keep the best employees at any cost. Another rule they follow is achieve candor through constant feedback regardless of the level. Another rule they follow is always eliminate unnecessary controls and always give people power to make decisions at the point closest to the opportunity or closest to the problem. Rules are good. Good rules are great. You and I have what some of the ancient philosophers call a rule of life. Throughout history, the best thinkers have passed their wisdom on to the next generation and generations after that via rules. If we heed their rules, which are usually very few in number, we have a better life. If we don't, we suffer. And we all construct rules for our life. And as a leader or a manager or a supervisor, you do too. Face the challenge of time or talent or wisdom at work or energy or resources or interpersonal conflict more than a couple of times, and you'll quickly create a rule of leadership. They sound like this: I'm never going to hire a person like Biff again, or I will never overcommit my calendar again. Sound like a rule, doesn't it? Or I'll always count the cost of my commitments before I make any promises. Or I won't make any decisions when I'm tired. Or I'm never going to drink a $10 bourbon again. These are all rules. So what are your rules? I want you to try this. Try this mental exercise for the next few days. Whenever fill in the blank happens, whenever A, I always or I never B. You probably did that today. Whenever blank, I always or never blank. What was it? What did you do today that fits in that category? What are the rules of the people that you work most closely with? You want to watch them too. They'll show you what their rules are. They'll tell you what their rules are. Sometime this week, take a little bit of time and pay close attention. You'll find that almost every conflict you face at work is because of either one, the rules themselves are in conflict, where one rule says I never and one rule says I always, or something like that, or two, the rule doesn't work, or maybe three, the rule is about feeling good rather than doing good and being good. For example, if you've shied away from doing the right thing because you're afraid of a strong emotional reaction from people at work or home or on your team or in your extended family or wherever, your rule doesn't work. If you're setting yourself up to be increasingly stressed and anxious, it's probably because of that rule. The rule is to never make people feel icky. You're setting yourself up to drink some really bad $10 bourbon is probably what you're doing. Old Crow tastes like its name. I'm just saying. This just means your rule doesn't work. It's time for a new rule. So let me leave you with this quick test to see if it's time for you to notice and update your rule of life, especially at work. Question 1. Are you emotionally reactive to other people's problems and you soak them up and you let those problems get in and change how you feel and what you do, especially when you know what to do is right, and that will cause a strong emotional reaction? First question. Second question. Do you have the ability to do what's right even when those around you disagree and hate it? Third question to find out if your rules work and are they the right rules. Third question. Do you measure the quality of your leadership and maybe even of your life based upon how people around you make you feel? Time to rewrite some rules. Here's a fourth question. Do you adapt to challenge and difficulty and even pain by simply distracting yourself from it, by doing something else that just distracts you or numbs the pain? Time to look at your rules. Here's the fifth question. Do you invest in people who you want to emulate? If the answer is yes, maybe your rules are good. So anyway, think about those 5 questions. Maybe you want to back up, look at them again, think about them. Think about the rules that you've created for your life and for your work. You've got a bunch of them. Do they work? To quote the philosopher, Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? Something to think about. Next time we're going to unpack this rule of life and rule of leadership that we've learned from some incredible leaders and see how their rules came about and how they fit us. So, I know leadership is hard. Don't make it harder than it needs to be by using bad rules. Here's to you. This is not Old Crow, I guarantee you. Take care.